Welcome back to The Explainer. So, today we are tackling something that I know is going to hit incredibly close to home for a lot of you. We're unpacking the science of the fixer identity. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Being that designated person everyone calls when their life is practically in shambles. The one with a color-coded spreadsheet for every crisis and a tissue for every tear. Well, today we're going to explore why this relentless, almost automatic drive to solve everyone else's problems and constantly apologize while doing it isn't just some quirky personality trait. Actually, it's a deep-seated survival strategy.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Just think about your everyday life for a second. Have you ever found yourself, say, staying up till 2 a.m., quietly fixing a coworker's messy presentation just so they don't look bad? Or, oh, how about this one? Someone literally steps on your foot and you apologize to them. Crazy, right? Have you ever bumped into an inanimate object like a chair and actually muttered, sorry to it? We do this all the time. We usually just laugh it off. We think, oh, I'm just being overly polite, or I'm just really accommodating person. But what if I told you that this impulse to instantly take the blame and fix the mood isn't politeness at all? It's actually a highly adapted, hypervigilant alarm system.
So here is the absolute crucial takeaway. This behavior is not about being nice. Not at all. It is a brilliant protective mechanism designed by your very own nervous system. You see, for the driven, high-achieving person, swooping in to fix things and absorb the blame feels like generosity. But right underneath that surface, it's a trauma response. Your body has literally learned that if someone else around you is unhappy or uncomfortable or disappointed, you are in danger. And the absolute fastest way to get yourself back to safety is to just neutralize their pain or completely absorb the blame yourself.
Section 1. The apology reflex.
Let's start by looking right at the surface of this iceberg. We really need to examine how we get trapped in this endless daily cycle of preemptive guilt, where the phrase, "I'm sorry," basically becomes our main way of relating to people rather than an actual admission that we did something wrong. This 5-level framework shows exactly how we slide from healthy accountability all the way down to total self-erasure. So level 1 is a calibrated acknowledgement. You step on someone's toe, you say sorry, it totally makes sense. But then we slide down to level 2, the reflexive apology. This is where sorry just turns into conversational filler. Things get worse at level 3, preemptive appeasement. You start apologizing before you even do anything. Think about saying, sorry to bother you, but can I ask a quick question? Then there's level 4, fault absorption, where you're literally taking the blame for someone else's bad mood or mistake. And finally, we hit rock bottom at level 5, pathological sycophancy. At this point, your own needs, your boundaries, your perspectives, they're completely erased just to keep everybody else comfortable.
Section 2. Anatomy of the Fawn.
Now, to truly understand why we slip down those levels so easily, we have to go below the surface. We need to look at the fascinating and honestly exhausting neurobiology driving these compulsive behaviors. And this is where we find the fawn response. Listen, fawning isn't just people-pleasing. It is an intensely mixed nervous system state. It actually combines sympathetic activation, which is that classic fight-or-flight adrenaline rush, with a dorsal freeze response. So what does that mean? It means on the inside, you are totally flooded with anxious adrenaline, completely hyper-focused on what the other person needs, but simultaneously, you are frozen to your own internal wants and emotions. You literally numb out to yourself, just so you can entirely focus on placating an external threat.
So where on earth does this start? Well, for a lot of people, it begins with something called parentification, usually in a chaotic childhood home. Just imagine a young kid walking through the front door after school. Before they even slip their backpack off, their nervous system is already instinctively reading the emotional temperature of the room. Is mom depressed today? Is dad angry? This kid quickly figures out that the adults in the room cannot regulate themselves. So to ensure their own survival, the child becomes the mediator, or the perfect student, or the invisible kid. They learn incredibly early on that love and safety are entirely conditional on how useful they can be.
And here is where we hit the wild both-and paradox of the fixer identity. Because you can be a genuinely caring, incredibly capable person, and at the exact same time, your compulsive need to fix things can be deeply controlling. Seriously, look at the contrast here. Healthy helping is empowering, it's totally optional, and it leaves you feeling grounded. But compulsive rescuing, that feels frantic, obligatory, and just incredibly exhausting. You aren't just fixing their problems to be nice. You're doing it because you physically cannot tolerate the biological anxiety that spikes in your body when you witness their distress. You're rescuing them so that you can finally take a breath.
Section 3. Conditioned to appease.
Okay, so we've looked at the childhood roots, but we really can't ignore the massive societal ocean we're swimming in. Modern culture and our current systems actively reward and honestly often demand this exact kind of self-erasing behavior. Look at this staggering data. Studies show that mothers perform nearly 73% of all cognitive labor. We're talking about the constant anticipating, the planning, the emotional shock absorbing that is required to just keep daily life running. And this massive imbalance, it directly predicts burnout. So if you're sitting there feeling totally exhausted by constantly managing everyone else's world, please hear this. It is not a personal failure. It is not a lack of willpower on your part. It's a systemic issue where society just disproportionately burdens women with the expectation of constant care.
And, this systemic conditioning perfectly explains the apology gap, too. Researchers Schumann and Ross looked into why women seem to apologize so much more readily than men. The old stereotype always points to, fragile male egos or just female politeness. But the data tells a completely different story. Women do not apologize more because they lack confidence. They apologize more because socialization has given them a much, much lower threshold for what even constitutes an offensive behavior. Men simply have a higher threshold. They genuinely perceive fewer of their own behaviors as something that requires an apology in the first place.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer mechanics of the appeasement habit. And we can actually see it by comparing human fawning to artificial intelligence. Yes, AI. Modern AI models are trained using something called reinforcement learning from human feedback. Basically, human evaluators score the AI, and the AI learns to produce whatever gets the absolute highest score, which usually means being hyper-polite, hedging its bets, and apologizing for things that aren't even mistakes. It's a literal appeasement bias. And traumatized human children run the exact same optimization loop. We learn that apologizing and fixing softens anger and earns us approval. So what do? We keep doing it to secure our safety, long after the original threat is gone.
Section 4. Rewiring your nervous system.
Now let's make the shift toward healing as we start our ascent up from those heavy systemic roots and get into some highly practical, actionable cures. I want you to just take a deep breath and really absorb this quote from the renowned trauma researcher Bessel van der Kolk. You do not have to live in a state of functional freeze forever. If you are struggling with this, please know that you are not broken. You're not defective. When the threat in your childhood was the very person who was supposed to love you, your body cleverly adapted. It learned to react to intimacy as a survival problem. Your nervous system is literally just trying to protect you. So healing doesn't start by shaming yourself for being a fixer. It starts by offering yourself the exact same compassion you so freely give to everyone else.
Because fawning is a nervous system state that physically lives in your body, you cannot simply think your way out of it. It just doesn't work. We have to use somatic tools. So the next time you feel that frantic, intense urge to rescue someone, I want you to pause and physically connect to your body. Bring in the 3 C's: compassion, curiosity, and care. When you catch yourself in the middle of people-pleasing, try this tool. Just say to yourself, "Of course I did. This is how I survived." Gently validate that old habit. And then, as you start practicing speaking your truth, take tiny baby kitten steps. Don't try to change everything overnight and push your nervous system too fast.
Now, alongside those somatic tools, we can also use some really practical cognitive pauses. For example, when someone brings you a crisis, instead of immediately jumping in to fix it, stop and ask them, "Wow, that sounds incredibly hard. Do you want me to just listen right now, or are you looking for advice?" If they just want you to listen, well, you're going to have to practice sitting with the biological discomfort of doing absolutely nothing. Let them save themselves. And in your everyday conversations, start replacing your apologies with gratitude. Instead of saying, "Oh my gosh, sorry I'm late," try saying, "Thank you so much for waiting for me." Be precise and intentional with your words.
Remember, true help actually allows people the dignity to experience their own resilience. You have spent your whole life trying to save everyone else around you. But you know what? You are allowed to finally save yourself. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to carry with you today. The very next time you feel that automatic, knee-jerk urge to say, "I'm sorry for something that absolutely isn't your fault," just pause for a second. Ask yourself, what truth are you hiding behind your next apology? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, guys. I really hope this empowers you to step back, reclaim your boundaries, and finally find your own voice.